So we've got a very cool little fish pond here. I can see some goldfish in there. There's a bunch of, what are those fellas? They look beautiful. Rosy barbs. Some rosy barbs, loving life in there. Let's see what we've got going on here. We've got some filters here that can be cleaned out. I'll work on them soon. So lots of, the other fish that would look really nice in here too would be Madakas. There's various varieties of Madaka available now in Australia. Japanese rice fish, probably the hardiest fish on earth. Wow, there's actually quite a lot of fish in here. And there's some really beautiful rosy barbs. I'll give this a nice water change, a bit of a clean out. The other thing to be aware of too is the pumps, the UV sterilizers in there. Over time are going to need replacing. They're probably due now. Looking at the water, it's actually pretty clear. It's going into spring now. But if we notice this water going a little bit green, probably the first thing we'd want to do is convert those, replace those UV tubes. This is really quite a beautiful little setup. Actually, if this was mine, I'm just thinking of it now, because there's some really cool looking cross beams across there. So we could actually quite easily put like a 2-foot tank in there, raise it up out of the water, place it on those cross beams, and then that would create like a 3-dimensional, an upside down tank caught with water. Means the fish could come and swim around above the water level of the pond. I reckon that'll look cool. Here is a fish pond. I can see a bunch of goldfish in there. There's also a filter. I'll check what's going on with that. Then there's a bit of a spillway into another fish pond, which has some more goldfish in there. Then there's another bit of a spillway down into another fish pond. Then we go around here. What a cool place, come on. A little campsite. And then we've got another pond. And it's very, very overgrown. So I'm assuming there's some fish in there, but I'll give that a nice big clean out. And there's our filter. So I'll have to work out how to get all that functional. And I see we've got power over there, so nice and busy. In the pond, I found what looks like little cherry shrimp. Wow, look at that. I'd love to understand the story behind this, but I found these little, they look like little cherry shrimp. So it appears that this pond is completely full of cherry shrimp. So that's going to make it very challenging to clean. Cleaning ponds, it's best to start with the top pond and work your way down. So that's what I'm going to do. For my first job, we'll be cleaning out these filters. Fish keeping is 50% water quality and 50% food quality. So I'm never too impressed when I see heavily processed, pressure cooked foods, especially when the ingredients don't contain any nutrients that fish would naturally eat. So I'd really like to see better quality food getting added, assuming that's what is being added. But all in all, fish look pretty great, and the fish would have a lot of natural food here. So the condition of these fish is actually quite good, because I would say they're getting plenty of natural nutrients. I wouldn't be putting more fish in here either. There's actually quite a lot of fish in here. The more I look in here, the more fish I'm seeing. Pretty impressive actually, it looks pretty good. The pond is absolutely full of little rosy barbs. I really don't want to be siphoning. So any siphoning I do will be straight off the bottom and very calculated and careful. But I think the main thing that this situation requires really is just a filter clean. Bit of a water change and a filter clean. I guess you could say this filter was due for a clean. Wowee, look at that. That is awesome. So obviously the fact that this filter is pumping so well and it's so dirty is unbelievable. So I'll give this a good clean up and we won't look back, but obviously the fact this filter is still pumping is unbelievable to me. We definitely want to replace the UV if we want maximum results. But I'm very amazed how much water was coming out of this UV, considering the amount of sludge was, let's say, epic. Quality equipment is really worth it. Now it's giving the filter a good clean. And then I'm actually using water that I've taken out of the pond to clean these sponges, because we really want to keep the good bacteria alive in these sponges. Now the other thing I'd just consider as well is, considering there's so many fish in this, if it was up to me, I'd get myself a whole heap of marine pure balls and throw them in the bottom of this pond, because that will greatly increase the biological capacity of this ecosystem for the fish. So that's something I would consider doing. That's going to offer parallel nitrifying and denitrifying media. The other thing that I'd look at doing too is using what's called Pristine. Now, Pristine is a good bacteria, and it really helps to desludge. So there's a lot of leaf litter and so forth in here. So using Pristine as a way of just removing a lot of the solid waste is something I'd consider doing in here as well. What I'm going to do now is vacuum some of the sediment off the bottom of the pond, because as you can see, this is actually working very well. It's pulling all the sediment out of the bottom, and because of this thick tube, there's a good chance we won't suck any fish up. But you can just see the sheer amount of sediment this is just removing out of the bottom. Now, one of the reasons why we want to pull all this sediment out of the bottom is if we don't, and then over time, it'll get what's called anoxic, which means you start getting bad bacteria growing in the areas of no oxygen. So on a semi-regular basis, we definitely want to go and get all this sediment out, because we don't want this sediment building up, or it does create a time bomb for us. Now, the other thing that's good to note too, because there's actually a very thick layer of sediment on the bottom of this, and I'm not going to turn the filters back on again until I've removed a lot of this sediment. Now, the other thing to be aware of when you're doing this is hydrogen sulfide. So it is possible that you release hydrogen sulfide. If that happens, I will tend to get very sleepy, and it might smell depending on what the level is. And then if I stay to sleep in that situation, then I might die, which isn't ideal. Then I have to get someone else to look after their pond. Now, the other thing too you want to do in these situations is move predictably. So just pick one area, and you want to just vacuum one area, and don't go willy-nilly throwing it around the place, because then you're more likely to suck up fish. Now, I'm just refilling the pond at the moment, so I'm not sure if it's tank water or tap water. So I'll assume it's tap water, because it's easier to add some water ager as we go than assume it's tank water. We also like to add just a little bit of salt for the immune system and body slime of the fish, and a little bit of KH buffer, just to make sure that the water's going to be right for these fish. Because if this is rainwater, it's going to be very soft, and if it's tap water, it often has a 0 KH anyway. So this has had a bit of a water change now. Huge amounts of sludge have come out of the bottom. So this will take a little while to clear. Then I will run the filters. Then later on this afternoon, I will clean the filters again, because after all the sludge that I have removed, the amount of crap that will have built up in the filter will be significant. So basically, after a major clean, the filters do need attention, otherwise they will clog up again. What I'm going to do now is quite carefully go through and try and net out a lot of the leaf litter, because we don't really want the leaf litter decomposing and reducing the quality of our water. So this is something best done on a semi-regular basis, just to try and remove any rotty leaves out before they decompose and add to our phosphate and algae and so forth. Really, if this can be done regularly, it's much better. Otherwise we end up with huge amounts of sediment in the bottom like we did in this case, and I'd really like to see some Pristine get added to this pond. So the filters are all clean. I've removed a lot of crap off the bottom, but it's going to take a lot more than one service to get all the crap off the bottom. With a job like this, it's much less stress on the fish to do several cleanups instead of one single cleanup expecting it to come good. We don't want to be shocking the fish. So after this clean, it's going to look terrible. Then it's going to settle. The filters will really need cleaning, and then it will look much better than it has. But once again, it's really not a one-stop solution, because a pond like this takes time to get to this condition, and then it should really take time to improve it. You can't just do it at once, or you will shock the fish. This is tap water. I'm going to put a bit of water ager in it. Mind you, there's no harm in putting a bit of water ager in it, even if it's not tap water, because the water ager will actually do a whole lot of stuff, not just age the water. It'll help with slime coat, and also when I'm disturbing the mud, I could be releasing nutrients, and this will also help to detoxify a lot of the nutrients. So these products are actually very good to add to the pond, regardless of whether there is chlorine in here. But in saying that, up to a 5 times dose is fine. You don't want to go getting too silly with anything. But definitely chuck some of that in there. Make sure everyone's going to be happy. Whenever we do a major change like this, it's also good not to feed for a week or so with an outdoor pond like this. But basically, these fish are looking very good. They're not fat and they're not thin. The condition of these fish is actually quite good. Once again, there's a lot more fish in here than you'd think. I would definitely not add more. Tempted to chuck a few Medarkas in, but that's about it.